later on to dinner this evening and more deliberations so that we can firm up the outcomes that we want to see coming out of this summit. Thank you very much. And I will now take this opportunity to usher in our youth representative, Ms. Elizabeth Wathuti, who has been, for the last 3 days, very solid resolutions, ideas, and very visionary indeed group of young people who are joining in the discussion and want to be part of the action. They say they no longer want to be bystanders. They want to be right on the table. Welcome, Elizabeth, and your team.
Thank you so much. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, invited guests, I stand on the observed protocol. After months of regional and national consultations, mobilization that accumulated into uniting youth from every nook and cranny of the continent here for the last 3 days to exchange and voice our concerns, we stand today, Saad Ukaz from the Kingdom of Morocco, Dion Shukuza from the Republic of Namibia, and I, Elizabeth Wathuti, from the host country of Kenya, the land of beautiful landscapes and the greatest marathoners, as representatives of the African Youth Climate Assembly, to underscore the urgency of addressing climate change and its profound impact on Africa's youth. Our declaration, the African Youth Climate Declaration, reflects our commitment to harness the power of our youth to drive meaningful change. The African Youth Climate Assembly's vision is rooted in inclusivity, resilience, innovation, and the conviction that young people are one of the biggest resources that Africa is endowed with. We seek to elevate youth participation and inclusion in climate governance, forging pathways towards sustainable development and green growth. And we urge you, our esteemed leaders, to join hands with us in this endeavor. And we have our key asks from the Youth Declaration that I will invite my good friends from the Kingdom of Morocco and Namibia to present.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. I stand on all observed protocol. The first demand that the Youth Climate Assembly came up with reads as follows. We oblige upon the key stakeholders to recognize, promote, and invest in the decision of the African Youth Climate Assembly to establish the Assembly as the principal forum for consolidating, meaningfully enhancing the coordination of youth engagement in the climate governance across member states beyond the Africa Climate Summit, and also further urge the key stakeholders to support youth inclusion in advancing Africa's sustainable development goals and the green growth agenda in continental forums. Further, engage the African Union Commission's Youth Division and Department of Sustainable Environment and Blue Economy to integrate the African Youth Climate Assembly into their structures, aligning, most importantly, with Article 19 of the African Youth Charter on Sustainable Development and Protection of the Environment. We further oblige upon parties to create an international or intergenerational green investment fund to generate green jobs for African youth. We would like to stress on this point that this was one of the most highlighted points from the consultations and also the engagements, financing youth action for climate. Further, lobby for the established United Nations Youth Office to be domiciled in Africa in line with structuring a global multilateral climate institution. We further also applaud on creating adaptation jobs for young people and equipping them with entrepreneurial skills for solutions, and thus fostering resilient livelihoods. Further, engage Africa's youth as advocates for increased access to renewable energy. Engage youth in exploring Africa's agricultural potential, in particular to meet the food security challenges of the continent. And lastly, to invest in youth-led research and innovation for identifying local climate solutions. And with those few demands, I would give my brother Saad Ukas a chance to give us a closing statement. Thank you.
Your Excellencies, in conclusion, our vision encompasses green investments, renewable energy, adaptation initiatives, and youth-led innovation. Your children are watching you today. We have to trust you, and you have to trust us. We call upon you leaders to enable us and stand with us in this crucial mission. Climate justice and sustainability are within our reach, and if not, one day we will be here at your place and with our countries burning and drowning, and you will not be there to save us. If we want to go far, we have to go together, join our hands to save our continent. Ubuntu.
Excellencies, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, Africa is a truly diverse and multi-ethnic continent. The indigenous peoples of Africa are often on the front line of the effects of climate change. To discuss with us today the indigenous peoples' perspective on climate change, please put your hands together to welcome Ms. Anne Samante.
Bana ba Kenya namugeze ndi mulembe lundi baya mumbe kama rumwezera ko bulayi bwo kubanenda kama tunda ko buru mu Kenya.
His Excellency the President of the Republic of Kenya, Dr. William Samoei Arap Ruto, and all other excellencies, distinguished guests, Madam CS, Honorable Soipan Tuya, all protocols observed. Good morning. My name is Samante Ann. I'm here to read a statement on behalf of indigenous peoples of Africa. We, the African indigenous peoples from 20 countries, gathered in the pre-summit held in Nairobi in the past 2 days in preparation for this summit today, appreciate the Africa Climate Summit Secretariat and the government of Kenya, as led by our able President, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, for the continued recognition of indigenous peoples and traditional knowledge as a contribution to African climate change discourses. The role that African indigenous peoples play in protecting critical ecosystems across the continent makes them major actors in combating climate change. Furthermore, given that our livelihoods are based on direct use of natural resources, indigenous peoples are unfortunately the most hit hardest by climate crisis, notwithstanding the fact that we have the lowest carbon footprint, or rather the lowest emitters. As the African Climate Summit commences today, our main concerns and requests are as follows. 1, on clean and renewable energy and energy transition. As we are all aware, all renewable energy initiatives are all around indigenous peoples' territories. For us, there is no idle land. For us, the so-called idle land is our fathers' grazing land. This is our area of our cultural, where we undertake our cultural rights. And so to us, any investment around renewable energy must take into consideration free, prior, and informed consent. Moreover, renewable energy investment should ensure to ease mobility of indigenous peoples, because through mobility, by ensuring mobility, then it means you've helped us to be more resilient, and the vice versa is true. On adaptation and resilience to climate risk, we are not only victims, but we also come with solutions. Our traditional knowledge and ways of life enable us to build resilience and adaptation to the impacts of climate change. Furthermore, considering that there are an estimated 50 million indigenous peoples living in 5 regions of African countries, whose participation and contribution through indigenous peoples' knowledge and knowledge system provides tremendous solution to the climate change crisis. However, as much as we contribute this much to climate resilience and adaptation, our knowledge and traditional adaptation resilience are not mainstreamed in local and regional policy and legislation frameworks. Therefore, we request this summit to recognize the contribution of indigenous peoples' traditional knowledge, which make them more resilient to climate change. On climate finance for adaptation and resilience, despite the fact that we do play a critical role in protecting the ecosystem that our lives entirely depends on, a recent study has shown that indigenous peoples receive less than 1% of all climate financing globally. Indigenous peoples of Africa continue to be obstructed from direct access to finance due to lack of recognition of our unique identity. Lack of clear policy, legal framework, and complex requirements continue to limit our direct access to climate financing, yet, as I said earlier, we are the most hit by the crisis of climate change. We therefore request for establishment of an Indigenous Peoples Climate Resilience Fund to mitigate against the impacts of climate change. On effective participation, and as climate change discourse continues to gain traction, the indigenous peoples, despite being the most vulnerable group, has continued to face systemic exclusion from decision making, and also have negatively impacted by the climate intervention, negatively impacted by the climate intervention and response measures, some of which are detrimental to the existence of indigenous people. During this summit and beyond, we request for effective and meaningful participation of African indigenous peoples, including creation of an African Union focal point at the AU headquarters to have an indigenous person focal point who will be handling our matters at the AU. In conclusion, we reiterate again that although indigenous peoples contribute the less to carbon emissions that lead to climate change challenges, we continue to suffer the most. We are therefore here with solutions and experiential lessons from Mama Africa. We look forward to have our concerns, priority, and contribution captured in the summit's outcome document, which is the Nairobi Declaration. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anne. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the summit is steeped in democracy, and with good reason, because the climate crisis affects everybody. The last 3 days, we have had very robust engagements during the 11th Climate Change and Development in Africa Conference held between the 1st to the 3rd of September, just ended yesterday. And this is a forum convened by the AU, UNECA, the Africa Development Bank, as well as the Kenyan government and the Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance, and to bring to us the voice and sentiments from the civil society is our next speaker.
Thank you, CS. Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, the Deputy President, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, respected guests, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to stand by existing protocols. It is with great honor that I address you today, first, as the Executive Director of the Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance, representing the African civil society, and secondly, wearing the hat of the larger non-state actors steering committee for the African Climate Summit, which has been meeting since the announcement by Kenya of hosting this all-important summit in February this year. As we gather here in Nairobi for this inaugural Africa Climate Summit, I can't help but feel the weight of the challenges and the opportunities that lie ahead. For many years, the climate change negotiations under the UNFCCC have remained a contestation between North and South, with deepening mistrust and a widening divide between North and South about two actions that should reverse the impacts of the challenge that poses existential threat to the survival of humanity and the planet, that is, adaptation and mitigation. The outcome of this summit, then, should seek to not only provide a neutral ground for conversation and restore hope and dignity for millions of people whose livelihoods have been turned upside down due to the ranging climate impacts manifested by shifting seasons, drying rivers, erratic rainfall, diseases, compounding food crisis, and forced solutions, but should also be responsive to African people's realities, aspirations, desires, and imperatives of climate justice. Top of these should be adaptation, underpinned by the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities. It is not just about coping with the impacts of climate change, but also about enhancing our solidarity in prosperity, resilience, reducing our risk, and seizing the opportunities which are coming with this challenge. Yes, Africa, with the most progressive position in international dialogue on climate change, has pronounced itself on what we require in adaptation and mitigation. And all standards show that we are doing more than our fair share in the global efforts to combat this crisis. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Africa needs between 160 to 340 billion US dollars by 2030 for adaptation, while the current flows are only around 16 billion annually, a fraction of a budget for a blue chip company and foundations attending this summit. We need a deep conversation on how to address this, including achieving the balanced financing between adaptation and mitigation, as delaying action now will result in exponential costs in the future. This summit should also convey a bold, unequivocal message from Africa that it is not a forum to end the industrialized countries to escape their historical responsibilities and transfer their burden of action to the victims of their actions, but a platform to once again renew our call to honor their commitments on deep and genuine emission reduction, adequate support to vulnerable, and support the communities at the front line of climate crisis. Ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude, we want to extend a hand of partnership and take front seat in the inevitable transition to low-carbon, climate-resilient, fair, equitable, and ecologically just development pathways. We should also seek to change the narratives, and I think I have heard His Excellency President speaking about that every time. And we need also reciprocal actions from our partners in the North and urge them not to shift the goalpost like they have done before. I hope, Your Excellency, you will agree with me that we are doing so much, but there is a problem. We have the critical natural resources, for instance, including vast mineral resources, cobalt, lithium, and all others, which will drive this transition. How to exploit these resources, then, should be the conversation we should have. How we leverage them will determine whether we repeat the curse of the minerals driving the carbon-addicted industrial revolution, that is through fossil fuels, which has brought us the current challenges we have. Or we will choose to start with an opportunity to shape our future through a resilient, prosperous, inclusive, and fair way. This is really our time. And thank you again, Your Excellency. When we were in South Africa during the African Parliamentarian Summit on Climate Policy and Equity, I told you, you are our general. And I told you, now below there, you have a soldier. Let us work together, and we promise our commitment to that process. Thank you, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much, Mithika, for speaking on behalf of the civil society. Now, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we move on, noting that the vital agenda pursued this week, the ACS will play a crucial part in the global fight against climate change and have a massive impact in the upcoming global initiatives on climate action. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we are aware that during this summit, we have the African Climate Week convened by the UNFCCC as part of the regional climate weeks, again, that build momentum for COP28. And we have here with us none other than the Executive Director of the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, Simon Stiell. Let us put our hands together to have the statements from Simon. Welcome, Simon.
Excellencies, ministers, colleagues, friends, I'm honored to be here at the Africa Climate Summit and the first of 4 regional climate weeks of 2023. I want to thank the Kenyan government and personally President Ruto for his leadership and vision in bringing us here together. And I want special recognition for Minister Soipan Tuya for her work and efforts in helping to organize both the summit and the climate weeks. This summit for Africa, by Africa, will help us tackle the climate crisis we see and feel all around the world. I speak to you today not just as the head of the UNFCCC, but as the former minister from a developing country. So let us talk about what we can do to stabilize the climate and build resilient societies in Africa and throughout the world. Development is, as it should be, a priority. I know personally the destruction that climate-related disasters can wreak on years of development. But the world is
while scaling up adaptation action. Mr. President, I also want to congratulate you for your leadership of the Committee of African Heads of State and Government on Climate Change, and in particular, for your leading role of championing Africa's position as a key driver to the new global green growth agenda. Climate change is no longer a distant threat. It is here with us. It is a global and local emergency whose impacts are one of the major drivers that are decelerating the Sustainable Development Goals. We need urgent action now. And we need to do it in such a manner that it does not compromise Africa's sustainable development ambitions. This, together with the NDCs, is one of the reasons why the long-term low-emission development strategies are critical. These strategies send clear economic signals that enable countries to make more efficient decisions around public and private investments needed to drive low-carbon development. More and more countries are hard-pressed to find solutions for climate finance. In an era of rising debt, this is not an easy choice. And I want to applaud here the government of Kenya for the innovative financing locally led climate action FLOCA. And I welcome this disbursement of $50 million to 45 county governments. This bottom-up approach supports and aligns with broader national and international climate goals and ensures that communities participate in decision-making processes while also reaping the benefits of investment in climate action and addressing social inequalities, a real issue for us on this continent. Mr. President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, UNDP staked its own performance scorecard on climate action. Under the leadership of Mr. Achim Steiner, who is on his way here, UNDP has committed in our strategic plan to bring renewable electricity to 300 million people, many of whom will be on this continent. The Africa Mini Grids program, which we launched last year at COP27, now in 18 African countries, is a pathway to achieving this goal. You can count on UNDP to continue to deploy its best assets and to create meaningful partnerships that would help us, in a way, transition to just, inclusive, and well-calibrated to the continent's critical development aspirations that we see contained in Agenda 2063. Mr. President, this morning you talked about lions, and I want to end by saying when spiders unite and create a web, they can tie down a lion. This is an African saying, and collaboration should be the key. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Allow me now, Mr. President, to invite the World Bank representative on behalf of FLOCA Development Partners, Mr. Kate Assen, who is the World Bank Country Director, who will speak on behalf of the FLOCA Partners Program. Welcome, Kate.
Good afternoon, everybody. It is an honor for us to be up here as the World Bank on behalf of our development partners to celebrate this first in the world national scale model of devolved climate finance. But in that vein, I want to start on a note of humility. It is an honor for the World Bank to be up here, but we are here only as the members of a large and strong partnership of development partners who help So I'd like to take just a moment, if you would join me in recognizing the representatives of the countries who helped make this happen. In alphabetical order, if I could ask first, stand up a representative from Denmark for recognition. Thank you, sir. From Germany. The Kingdom of the Netherlands. Thank you, Ambassador. And from Sweden. And Sweden actually planted the seed with the original pilot finance and ideas that grew into this mighty tree that is now the FLOCA. This began in a few counties as a pilot, and Kenya quickly saw the opportunity to grow this to help it fulfill its largest and most ambitious climate commitments and engage its citizens, recognizing that there is no solution at the local level without involving the local level. In that sense, this is an excellent illustration of the old saying, think globally, act locally. FLOCA does three important things. First of all, it has flipped the script on finance. Until now, less than 10% of climate finance has gone to the local level, even though, as His Excellency the President said this morning, that is where the impact, of course, is most acutely felt. FLOCA aims to redress that by bringing money right down to the grassroots level. Second, it has created no new structures. It builds on the strong devolution structures that Kenya already has in place. It helps to strengthen county systems and capacity to transfer money and technical capacity to the local level. And in that sense, it also serves as a platform for development partners to coordinate and to crowd in additional finance from others. But third and most important, it recognizes and it respects the local expertise and what it takes to respond and to take advantage of the opportunities of climate. Using the participatory climate risk assessment and action planning tool, it engages the communities, marrying the latest science with the community's own knowledge of their situation so they can shape their own solutions and their own response to the climate crisis. And that, Vanna, is truly the best of both worlds. It works very simply. There are two grants that FLOCA gives. One is to county governments to help build their capacity to work with the communities to assess the risk and prioritize their investments in resilience. And then the second is a larger grant to help finance those actions at the local level. So we are delighted that the first assessment and action plans have now been delivered by 44 of Kenya's counties. And today we will be launching the first investment grants for all of them. This is a terrific achievement. And of course, Kenya aims to be a model for other countries, and that is exactly what we're seeing with FLOCA. This has become a powerful and a vital model, even in its infancy, to engage the most vulnerable people and to inspire other countries to learn and perhaps adapt for their own use. I believe that's why His Excellency, the President of Sierra Leone, is here. We know there's also interest from Somalia and Tanzania, and I want to acknowledge the presence of our Vice President for Eastern and Southern Africa, Victoria Kwakwa, who is here so we can help expand to our other clients. So in short, FLOCA is a wonderful achievement for Kenya. It is a wonderful model for others. And in a way, it is misnamed. It's true, it does finance locally led action, but I think much more important at the local level, it is engaging, entrusting, and empowering the local level to play its full part in responding to the needs and opportunities of climate. It's an honor to be here today. Thank you.
A round of applause again for Kate. Mr. President, the FLOCA program is a cornerstone in our commitment to boost our locally led climate action efforts. And that is why, as mentioned, there will be goodies to the county governments on the FLOCA program, and that's why most of the governors are here. Your Excellency, allow me now to invite Dr. Barbara Kofler, the Parliamentary State Secretary of the Federal Minister of Economic Cooperation and Development of the Republic of Germany. Welcome.
Excellencies, I think all protocol observed in the sake of time. Thank you very much for the invitation here to Nairobi. We are very happy to be here with my colleague from the Foreign Minister, Jennifer Morgan, together to represent our government, Germany, and participate in that very important event here. Well, we heard that Kenya is very ambitious in defining its own national climate targets. Started a few years ago, but now you are updating your national determined contributions, and that underlines really the role that Kenya is a regional champion for renewable energy. I want to congratulate you on that point. Well, your country is increasing, becoming a climate action leader on the continent, and we are also very happy in Germany that Kenya has joined the Climate Club. We welcome very much that the Kenyan government has published its first long-term strategy. This is an important instrument for channeling investment into priority sectors. And that Kenya's National Climate Change Action Plan spells out the goals of the LTS and the NDCs in a really concrete manner, because at the end of the day, implementation is the crucial moment. We are happy as Germany that we are here and able to support Kenya's efforts to draft those strategies. That effort has been based on a multi-sector approach which has involved country governments, civil society and private sector. And I think the civil society engagement you've shown as Kenyan was very exceptional and should be underlined, because that was an event where more than 280 young Kenyans participated, and they were building up their capacities to work on climate change as an important topic for the next generation. I would like to use this opportunity to congratulate Kenyan government on that effort especially. At COP27, Germany signed a roadmap for launching a climate and development partnership with Kenya. The Kenyan-German partnership will focus on mitigation, especially increased generation of renewable energy and support for electric vehicle transport, and adaptation, with a focus on improving the resilience of agricultural structures and agricultural systems. Germany is providing active support to Kenya in the following areas: increased renewable energy generation. Together we want to improve regulatory environment for green hydrogen production, and we want to enhance fertilizer production on the basis of green hydrogen. Kenyan-made green fertilizer is the goal. And in order to increase the resilience of local communities, we are also supporting climate change adaptation in the agricultural sector. Since early this year, we have been funding via KfW, and together with the other partners presented here today, the nationwide financing locally led climate action, FLOCA, as it was pointed out here, and our contribution will be 31 million euros to that program. Well, Your Excellency President Ruto, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, at this climate summit, Kenya and Africa lead the way. Germany is keen to support the ambitious policies and also takes on the responsibility to implement ambitious climate goals at home in Germany and in our responsibility also in the European Union. Asante sana.
Thank you so much. A round of applause. Allow me, Your Excellency, to welcome Her Excellency Anne Waiguru, the Chairperson of the Council of Governors, to make her remarks. Her leadership, Your Excellency, has been instrumental in ensuring that counties create climate change action plans that shape the National Climate Change Action Plan, the successful implementation of the Financing Locally Led Action Plan, and also the impressive uptake of the participatory climate risk assessment development by counties. Welcome, Governor.
Your Excellency, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya and Commander-in-Chief of the Defense Forces, Your Excellency, Julius Maada Bio, President of Sierra Leone, Your Excellency Rigathi Gachagua, Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, and Your Excellency Nangolo Mbumba, Vice President of Namibia, representatives of the African Union and regional affiliated organizations, Cabinet Secretaries present, Principal Secretaries, development partners, all delegates and distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Before I make my remarks, Your Excellency, allow me to recognize the presence of governors who are present today here during this forum. May I request them to please stand up. Let's acknowledge them. Thank you very much. The launch of various policy financing instruments today is a significant milestone to not only Kenya, that celebrates a two-level system of governance, but also a benchmark to African nations and the globe in our collective journey towards driving green growth and climate finance solutions for Africa and the world. This opportunity displays progress, determination, ambition, agility in climate action, harnessing together our efforts from a locally adaptation approach. Subnational governments as institutions envisaged as drivers of transformative service delivery at the local level are in the forefront to deliver a catalyzed low-carbon economy and sustainable development. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, a decade old, all the county governments have enacted and implemented the requisite policy and legal climate change frameworks that anchor various processes and structures to galvanize climate action at the local level. This includes the county climate change funds, a ring-fenced financing model for climate action. In the financial year 2023-2024, the counties have cumulatively allocated from their development budgets an approximate 3 billion shillings public funds supplemented by other additional financing from development partners and private sources towards climate action. In the heart of local development and local governance, the county governments have institutionalized the ward and sub-county climate change planning committees that identify, plan, and prioritize adaptations and mitigation projects based on their needs to accelerate adaptive capacity and resilience building. The strengthened capacities at communities and county level has contributed significantly in the development of participatory climate resilient assessment, PCRA 2, and further county climate action plans, CCAPs, meant to guide the counties in the next 5 years with prioritized climate investments which are mainstreamed in the county integrated development plans, CIDPs, and annual development plans, ADPs. Underlying the principle of subsidiarity and borrowing from the bottom-up approach, the synthesized county climate change plans translate into the National Climate Change Action Plan for the county, which will be launched today, which is a tool that will enable us meet our ambitious national determined contributions that commits to abate greenhouse gases emission by 32% by 2030. In this context, counties have a central role in their contribution to reducing emissions, and in this regard, counties have made various performance measures for the county climate resilience investments under FLOCA program. The average of USD $1.25 million under the CCRI grant will steer counties in a move aimed at achieving their climate objectives and aspirations. This is through various community and county prioritized projects, including afforestation and reforestation programs, aligning with the 15 billion tree growing agenda led by His Excellency the President, clean energy development, integrated water resource management, water service provision, climate smart agriculture, disaster management, transition to circular economy, and climate proofing of county infrastructure, amongst other projects. Implementing targeted capacity building initiatives, innovations, and knowledge management programs in counties is integral towards supporting building of strong institutions. Investing in climate change data systems for various devolved sectors and the data sets relevant to various sectors, climate vulnerability and resilience index, climate incentives including carbon trading, and county financing tracking, monitoring and reporting are critical drivers to climate-sensitive growth and transformation. This launch today brings us together to celebrate the journey towards the envisaged low-carbon development pathway by fostering cooperation, collaboration, and learning between the national and county governments, as well as advancing the common goal to green growth and climate finance solutions in Africa and the world. Finally, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, county governments are committed to enhance county planning, budgeting, and execution of allocated resources for climate action through actual investment in climate adaptation and mitigation by realigning resources within and across sectors to effectively address local needs and align with national priorities for effective service delivery. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Governor Waiguru. A round of applause to her. Your Excellency, the success of the FLOCA program depends on the county government. They are highly expectant today on the release of the investment grant check. But to confirm that, I would like to invite the Cabinet Secretary, Judge of National Treasury, Professor Ndungu, to confirm that there will be a check to be issued to the county government. And as he comes, I want to reiterate to Your Excellency that the chair of the Project Management Committee of the FLOCA program is P.S. Kipto of the National Treasury. I co-chair with him, and the CEO of Council of Governors. Thank you. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you very much, and Your Excellency, let me appreciate and acknowledge all the protocols that are being observed. I'm very happy to be here, and I'm also very happy that this afternoon I just want to start by extending warm welcome to all who are present, who came to this Africa Climate Summit. I would also like to express my sincere gratitude to the organizers for this important event on locally led climate action. It is important because of its timing. Particularly, also it's noteworthy that as we launch this strategy, we are going to launch four areas that have been actually talked about. The first one is actually long-term low emission strategy that is going to be launched. The second one is National Climate Change Action Plan, that is NCCAP 2023 to 2027. The third one is Climate Change Act of 2023. Again, it has been mentioned by P.S. Ngeno. And then finally, we want to make sure that we launch the county investment grants under the Financing Locally Led Climate Action, which is FLOCA. This event demonstrates the government of Kenya's commitment and its in tackling the climate change through enabling policy frameworks, and also pioneering leadership on stepping up financing at the local level. Your Excellencies, I will also focus my remarks on the Financing Locally Led Climate Action Program, FLOCA, and the launch of the county investment grants, which I think P.S. volunteered to actually provide the information, so I have no surprises to make. The FLOCA program is designed to encourage cross-agency collaboration and vertical linkages from the community level up to the national level in addressing climate change action. It is a pioneer program for developing and even decentralizing climate finance in scale to specifically specifically deliver locally-led climate adaptation and even some resilience actions. County and national governments' institutional capacity to predict, plan, budget, implement, and monitor, report, and even report climate actions that have been successful. It is important to note that without financial support that helps communities to develop in an inclusive manner and adapt to climate impacts, climate change is projected to push tens of millions, especially at the low level, into extreme and even abject poverty. This has happened. For example, what we experienced last year and the beginning of this year has been a good example that food security and climate change became quite devastating and reversed all efforts in terms of poverty reduction and even fighting inequality, and even introduced the dimension of civil conflict because of fight for natural resources. We have managed to secure a total of $297 million to finance this program. And I want to list how they have been contributed. The World Bank has provided from the IDA US $150 million. Denmark, through Danida, has provided $8.9 million. Sweden, through SIDA, has provided $14.4 million. German government, through KfW, has provided $3.7 million. The Netherlands have provided $10 million. The government of Kenya has also made a contribution of $5 million, but it's also very important and encouraging to notice that the counties themselves, consistent with what Her Excellency Governor Iguru has mentioned, the 47 countries have made a contribution of $75 million, Your Excellency. So you can see that it's really some very important for us to recognize that. We are therefore honored and delighted to join the global community and our development partners to jointly launch the Country Climate Resilience Investment Grants under the FROCA program. Today's launch of the program's investment grant for the counties is a milestone and a testament towards accelerating a low-carbon and climate-resilient path through enhanced mobilization of resources that will finance these actions. During the financial year 2022-2023, the National Treasury transferred to the counties a total of Kenya shillings 979 million for the FROCA County Institutional Support Grant. The launch of the Kenya shillings 7.387 billion for the financial year 2023 to 2024 will therefore go a long way in strengthening the county's capacity and even capability to implement the low carbon and climate resilient interventions. The imminent implementation of the FROCA program by rural county governments signifies and even becomes a monumental step forward. It is significant that our collective determination to transform our climate change challenges into opportunities for growth and sustainability becomes very critical. This initiative is not merely a directive, it is a testament to our shared belief in fostering resilient communities and safeguarding the well-being of the current and the future generations. Your Excellencies, we are happy to note that the high commitment by the county governments to implement the FROCA program is quite admirable. This is demonstrated by the keenness, the speed at which they have implemented some of the activities, and they have put in place the necessary climate change policies, registration, and even institutional capacities. So I'm very happy that we have come to this far, and we are very encouraged by that heterogeneity. In conclusion, Your Excellencies, I wish to thank our development partners for their collaboration and financial support in this initiative. By embracing the financing of locally led initiatives and uniting our expertise and aspirations, we are fostering a culture of collaboration and innovation. Finally, also, it's also good to mention that it is a showcase for Kenya so that other African countries can follow suit, so that we not only deal with the national level issues, but also at the local and county level devolved functions. Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
Thanks so much, Professor Ndungu, Cabinet Secretary. At least it's confirmed the financing is there. We appreciate you. Your Excellency, as I come to the end of this segment, allow me to invite Honorable Soipan Tuya, the Cabinet Secretary in charge of Environment, Climate Change, and Forestry, whose responsibility is to work with the counties in mainstreaming the programs of LTS, NCAP, Climate Change Amendment, and the FLOCA programs. Welcome, Waziri.
Thank you, PS. Your Excellency, Dr. William Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya, Excellency Julius Maada, President of Sierra Leone, Excellency Nangolo Mbumba, Vice President of Namibia, Excellency Rigathi Gachagua, President of the Republic, Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, Excellency Governors present here, led by Her Excellency Anne Waiguru, Chair of the Council of Governors of Kenya, Honorable colleague ministers present here, Excellency Ambassadors, Principal Secretaries, Heads of Development Partners, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Your Excellency, this event here is a demonstration that beside your leadership at the African Union level as a chair of the Committee of African Heads of State and Government on Climate Change, as well as you're rallying the globe around collective climate action, that indeed you are leading from the front right here in Kenya. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor to host you today at this event organized by the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Forestry, together with the Ministry of National Treasury and Planning. I take this opportunity to thank all our development partners who have supported the processes that we are launching and unveiling here today. These include the World Bank, UNDP, the governments of Germany, Sweden, Denmark, and the Netherlands. Thank you for standing with the government of Kenya in this endeavor. Kenya developed its long-term low greenhouse gas emission development strategies, LTS, which aims to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050 while retaining the economic development trajectory. It sets out a vision, objectives, and priority interventions for delivering economic growth. It also assesses socio-economic losses associated with climate hazards, as well as an estimation of the cost of adaptation interventions, and will be critical in guiding the successive nationally determined contributions, as well as the national climate change action plans up to 2050. Excellencies, distinguished guests, to align climate change actions to the government's development agenda and implementation of Kenya's nationally determined contributions and LTS, we have the National Climate Change Action Plan that is reviewed every 5 years. Today, we present for launching the reviewed National Climate Change Action Plan 3 for 2023 up to 2027. The development of the National Action Plan was guided by a steering committee, very consultative, involving the participation of state departments and agencies of the national government, county governments, civil society, the private sector, academia, a wide range of individuals and institutions. It therefore reflects the various sector commitments to address climate change in the next 5 years. And as a ministry, we recognize and applaud these individual and collective efforts. Excellencies, we are also launching the recently assented to Climate Change Act Amendment of 2023. Kenya enacted the Climate Change Act in 2016. However, to make it responsive to the aspirations of the Paris Agreement on Sustainable Development and alleviation of poverty, we have just amended this law to capture a regulatory framework for carbon markets, which will ensure high integrity, high quality, and transparent engagements in the carbon market framework. We are proud today, as a ministry and as government, to present one-of-a-kind carbon market regulatory framework law in Africa. We wish to thank the Houses of Parliament for support, as well as His Excellency, the President, for assenting this bill into law in the last few days. We witnessed a lot of huge interest from individual Kenyans, non-state actors, and therefore it is a reflection of the ambition of Kenyans towards creating an enabling environment for investment in our carbon credits. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, adequate and predictable climate finance is key for implementation of climate action. This calls for enhanced resource mobilization through bilateral, multilateral, and concessional funding. The Financing Locally Led Climate Action Program, FLOCA, is one of these attempts and has crowdfunding from the World Bank, governments of Germany, Denmark, Sweden, the Netherlands, as well as the government of Kenya, to the tune of $295 million US. It is important to note that over 80% of these funds will flow directly to our devolved units at the ward level to support local level climate action. This is squarely in the core of our bottom-up economic transformation agenda. Today, we will witness the handing over of the first tranche for county governments, which will be utilized for the local level support, community resilient investments. And I am looking forward to breathing life into our intergovernmental framework together with Excellency governors present here through this collaboration and beyond. As a government led by His Excellency the President, we also launched the 15 billion tree growing national landscape and ecosystem restoration program. This was in December of last year. And this is part of our climate action to support carbon sequestration. And we have our targets set out clearly. And Your Excellencies present here today, as I said, that Kenya is leading from the front. We continue to push the envelope beyond the business as usual scenario. We continue to push the envelope beyond the set targets, because as it is the main gist of the summit, the Africa Climate Summit, what we are all doing from the global level is not enough. We have to take our initiatives to a bigger scale. We have to react with the urgency as well as the inclusivity and global efforts to make sure that we all achieve our targets. I conclude by thanking all of you for the continued support accorded to the government of Kenya and through all these policies, laws and strategies on climate action. Receive our utmost assurance of their effective implementation to facilitate and implement climate action across the country. With those remarks, I now take this opportunity, ladies and gentlemen, to invite His Excellency President of the Republic of Kenya, William Ruto, to make his remarks. Welcome, Your Excellency.